Hello everybody, this is OrcaChess again. Today we are following up with our video series about the Cozio Defense. We are looking at the variation after first c3. Here White wants to play d4 very early. In the previous video we analyzed castling as a third move. But here White wants to go into the center immediately. We are playing g6, the normal Cozio style. Then White is playing d4, taking on d4, pawn takes on d4, d5. Knight to c3 is now the main line in this variation. But first of all, I want to discuss several sidelines with you. First is bishop to g5. It's a very concrete line because the knight on e7 is pinned and it's a bit complicated. We will look at this. Then the closed variation after e5. The position gets a completely new character because it's closed. Both players have more time to develop the pieces, and it's important how to develop in this kind of position. Then this is it. These are the sidelines here, important sidelines. Okay, let's start. Bishop to g5. Here black has to take on e4. Because if black doesn't take on e4, there's too much pressure in the center, and white can take on d5, and there are a lot of pins. The knight on c6 is pinned, the knight on e7, and so on. So it's important here to take on e4. Okay, here are two different variations. One variation is this is the logical variation for white is knight to e5, and blunder, and white can make a blunder in this position here with bishop to f6. So first of all, we analyze the blunder variation. Here at first sight you could think, oh, white is very active, black cannot castle anymore, rook is attacked. But in reality, white can take on f3, and after bishop takes c6, pawn takes c6, bishop takes h8. White sacrificed the quality, but white gets a lot of activity for that. After takes on g2, rook is forced to go on g1, and knight to d5, queen e2, bishop e6. I would say black is almost winning here because of his strong pieces in this, like this knight, this bishop. The pawn is very dangerous, and white cannot take it immediately because of knight f4, and it's not a pleasant position for white here. There are moves like bishop b4 check, which are dangerous, or queen to h4, queen to g5. And this position has a lot of potential for black. You can believe me. Okay, back to the considerable line. Knight to e5. After knight to e5, queen d6 is important, and the queen protects a lot of important squares like f6, like c6, and so on. Knight to c3, bishop g7, and here are arising a lot of crazy positions, like bishop takes e7. Here king has to take on e7. Bishop takes c6, pawn takes e6, castling. f5, and that firstly it looks like that the king safety of white is really bad. Sorry, the king safety of black is really bad, but I think that's here it's no problem. The pawn chain is closed. White cannot bring enough material into the attack. So after, for instance, queen e4, rook e8, black can castle virtually. Rook to ad1, king f8, rook to e1, and bishop e6. I think the king safety of black is very good here, and there are pawns, and black has a lot of strong pawns in the center. A strong pawn chain. Black has the bishop pair. I think black has a lot of active opportunities in this position. So it's a nice dynamic. So I would say it's a nice dynamic position. Okay, so let's go to the variation after 7th e5. Here we have to do a lot of normal development moves like bishop to g7, bishop to g5 from white, castling. White can take on c6 and can disturb our structure. So we have to take with the pawn. We have double pawns in the c file. But the drawback of this move is that white gives up his bishop pair, and with the help of this bishop pair we can get enough compensation for this strategical weakness on the c file. Castle h6, pushing back the bishop on g5. This is just an example how the game could follow up. What could be ideas? How could black manage it to develop its minor pieces and its major pieces? It's basic ideas are shown here. Here white has two options. First option is to take on e7, or he can go back to h4. First of all, we will analyze bishop to h4, bishop to h4. Then we have the opportunity to create an attack on the king side of g5. Bishop has to retreat onto g3. Knight f5. f5 is a very good square for knight. It's the place to be for it. h3, rook b8. We're using the strong b file, so maybe the double pawns has an advantage because the b file is open. Then b3 is protect. h5, we can walk on the king side. We can squeeze him. Knight to c3, g4, takes, knight to e1. Now we can bring our queen into the attack with queen to g5. Queen, it's a very good square for the queen. Knight to e2, takes c5, and I would say in this position black is fine. The structure has improved, and black gets rid of his double pawn. Bishops are very active, rooks. That's a good position. It's quite good to play this. Okay, the next variation is that white takes on e7 after h6. Takes on e7, queen takes e7, knight to b2 to d2, c5. We're getting rid of our double pawn on the c file. Knight to b3, c4. There are two options, c4 or taking, and maybe c4 is not a bad plan here. g5, c4 and g5. We can attack again. Another option is taking. Then the queen takes. Use the b file for our rook. It's her active position as well, but I would prefer the position after c4 and g5, because the plan is very easy. Black wants to push the pawns on the king side and tries to attack the white king. Black can move rook b8 and improve his position, maybe with bishop to g4, bishop to f5. There are a lot of ideas in this position. Or he can play g4, h5, h4. It depends. Okay, this what? Now we have discussed lots two sidelines. So we can go back to the main line after knight to c3. Knight to c3. Okay, we take on e4. Then we have two lines again. First line is knight to e5, and then taking on e4. We start with this one. Knight takes on e4. Then we have to develop our bishop. We have to protect important square f6. Okay, bishop to g5, castling, queen to d5, strong square for the queen, attacks the bishop. Creating room for the rook. Rook can go to can theoretically go to d8 now. Queen is getting very active. Then has to retreat with the knight and play knight to c3. Then queen to d6, d5. Knight to e5, knight to e4, queen b4. We have seen this in our previous movie. b4 is sometimes a very strong square for the queen because it's attacking a lot of material, and it disturbs the whole setup of white. Takes on e5, bishop takes. Knight to f6. It looks very dangerous, but you will see. King to g7. Knight to e8. We have to sacrifice equality here in this variation. Bishop takes f6. Bishop to f5. And we see that we are quality down. But our bishops are very active. Queen is very active. King safety is quite okay. Rook d8, we are taking the isolated pawn on d5, and I think it cannot be protected anymore. So we are winning a pawn here. After bishop, for instance, after bishop b3, we can play c6. We can raise the pressure on this pawn. After bishop to d2, we can attack two pawns. Via queen to d6, we attack the h2 pawn and the d5 pawn. So white will lose a pawn, and we have I think in this position black has enough compensation for their sacrificed material. Okay, all these lines I show I'm showing you are from Grandmaster games. I've collected, and I have chosen for this video series. And this is not freely made up. What you can see here, it is played in a real game, and some lines are analyzed and what happens when black or white plunders here, or what could be an idea after this move order. So it has its roots. Okay, knight to e5, bishop g7, bishop to g5. Now we are getting back to our main line. Queen to d6. It's a key move, queen to d6. d6 is a good square in this Cozio for the queen. Bishop to f4. It's a very complicated position here, but black can equalize if he plays very precise. Queen to e6 is the easiest way to do that. d5, queen to f5, queen is very active. Taking on c6 and castling. A lot of white pieces are hanging now, these two. Black will get back material. So taking on f4. Here we have to sacrifice equality. Now we are creating an attack under white's king. The white king hasn't castled, so we have the chance to attack him with e3. After takes on e3, queen takes e3, queen to e2, bishop takes c3, for instance. Pawn takes c3, queen takes c3, king to f2. Black can give a perpetual check here, and I would recommend it in this position. The position is very complicated, and a draw is a good result here, I think, for black. Okay, that's it for this variation. In the next video session we will discuss the variation after knight to c3. See you later on OrcaChess.